All right, so this comes from the 602 area code, and it's really funny how narratives change in the league week to week. I mean, for 2 weeks, the Browns defense was, Browns fans were losing their minds over how great it was, and now this week, I had somebody reply to a tweet today that I tweeted out a photo of a typo in a game I was watching. It said 3rd and 91, and somebody tweeted back at me, "Oh, the Browns defense would probably just give that up." So Browns fans change week to week, apparently, how they think about things. So here's why we're going to do this one from the 602 area code. After 5 games, the Browns defense is blank.
Now, before we do that, I just want to ask really quickly on the 3rd and 91. Do you think that Kevin Stefanski?
That was from midfield, by the way, from midfield.
It was at the 50-yard line. It was actually 3rd and 9, but
All right, I'm sorry. I had to get that in there. So tell us the blank again.
After 5 games, the Browns defense is blank.
Limping. The defense is good. It's just, all of a sudden you went from, this group that gelled and was dominant from back-to-back games to who are they going to put on the field this week? Everything just crashed, and it wasn't totally, you could point to most of the issues they had against the Chargers being due to not having their best group of talent out there. I know they had the one issue with Harrison and Johnson, and one time when Mike Williams got free. Those guys are going to be out there regardless. But, the other one, you had AJ Green trying to communicate with Grant Delpit, which wasn't good. And like their first touchdown, the Chargers' first touchdown, you had Myles Garrett was off the field. Denzel Ward was off the field. Greedy Williams, I believe, might have been off the field at that point. You had JOK was off the field on that one. You had Taki out there, Mac Wilson. Joe Jackson was one of your edge rushers along with McKinley. It just was not the A team. It was some of it was substitution. Some of it was injury. It just, I said after the game, they didn't get the best version of the Browns defense for sure. And I think that's probably what you're most concerned about if you're going to fill in that blank.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. People, the sky is not falling on this defense right now. They went into the game without Greg Newsome. They went into the game without Jadeveon Clowney as a surprise scratch when his knee flared up before the game. He was supposed to play in that game. Myles went into the game banged up already. They lost Denzel early. That game to me was all about the injuries. And that's not an excuse. That's reality. That is just the absolute reality of a football game when you've got 5 or 6 key guys either not playing or being lost in the middle of the football game. You just have to do so much juggling. And it's such a fast-paced game in a shootout. It's hard to have your act down and your act together when that kind of revolving door is happening. So my opinion of the defense hasn't changed. I would fill in the blank by still saying dangerous, because this is a dangerous defense. And Justin Herbert and Mike Williams and company will find that out if they have to face the Cleveland Browns again and they're healthy in that particular matchup, because this was not anything like what they're going to experience when those guys are intact.
I do think for as many points as they gave up and for as good as Justin Herbert looked, they actually did make him pretty uncomfortable in this game. That was actually statistically one of his worst games of the year. He only completed 60% of his passes. Now he threw for 398 yards, which was his season high. But, when you really watched, you could just tell there were some missed throws. There were some throws that were wide behind guys. He had to scramble out of pressure a little bit. Justin Herbert's just a stud, right? But I do think the Browns kind of made him uncomfortable, especially when I went back and rewatched it. It just felt like they made him uncomfortable. And that just turned into one of those games where, there weren't going to be many stops. And sometimes that happens in football. The offenses just get going and there aren't going to be many stops. I would say they're still promising. I have no reason to not believe that this defense isn't going to keep getting better. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah played a ton of snaps on Sunday. First time that's really happened that he's played that many. John Johnson is still figuring out his role. Clowney's going to be back. And that has that domino effect of making Tack McKinley your third edge rusher again, which is where he's been really good this year. They're going to be fine. They're going to get Greg Newsome back, and they're going to figure this stuff out. And it's only week 5. This defense, and Anthony Walker even said this last week, it's not about being great in week 5. You want to be great later in the season. You're building towards something. If they were at their peak now, they'd be more concerned. So you're building this thing. So it wasn't great on Sunday, but I think there were some good things, and I think there's still a chance. I'm still very bullish on this defense, as it sounds like we all are.
Mhm.
Okay, this one